Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first ever Century User Group webinar. Thank you very much for joining us on this somewhat special occasion. As you may know, we had hoped to be bringing the actual Century User Group to be welcoming you to the University of Nottingham today, but that has fallen victim to the lockdown, of course. Our plan is to hold that later in the year, as soon as reasonably safe, safe and practical to do so. And we will, of course, keep you up to date, send you invitations, and it'd be great if you can join us for that when that happens. In the meantime, we have chosen some core topics that we had hoped to bring you from the user group to present to you in 2 webinars. The second one will cover Juno Study Time, which is our desk booking and space booking solution, and Juno Vantage, which is our building occupancy monitoring solution. So the second webinar, which is it's just a few weeks away, probably in May, is all about space management, space utilization. We will send you invitations for that, of course, and it would be great if you could join us for that too. For this morning, we have 3 other products in the Juno family to talk to you about, 3 recent developments, and they are Juno Analytics. Thank you. Juno Analytics, which is our most recent development and most significant development in Century reporting, possibly ever. We have Juno Buddy, which is a phone app which mysteriously allows students to enter the library through the turnstiles without needing their ID card. And we have Juno Infinity, which is a solution that allows you to do away with the need to maintain your Juno client applications. So we're hoping to cover all of these in around about an hour, and to finish at around about 12 o'clock. Thank you to those of you that responded to the 2 questions on the registration page. It was very helpful. We asked whether any of these 3 products were of particular interest, and we did get a cross-section across all 3, which is great, but we also got a little bit of emphasis on the top one. So we're building that feedback into our plan for this morning. So whose voices can you hear? Who have we got with us today? I know they're on mute, so they won't be able to say good morning at the moment, but we have myself. I'm sales account manager for Southern England. Kevin, hi. We have Barney, sales account manager for the rest of the UK and Ireland. So hello to his customers that have joined us. Hello, Barney. We have Alan.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Barney. We have Alan, sales director. Alan's role today is to feed in questions that you ask, questions and comments that you ask at suitable times, and of course to contribute to some of those answers as well, whilst it will be myself and Barney who will cover the main presentation for you. Just to digress slightly, Alan is retiring at the end of April, so that's just 2 weeks' time now. So could I, that'll be probably before the next webinar, so could I just take this opportunity on behalf of his colleagues here, and perhaps take the liberty on behalf of his customers as well to thank him for his service and for his significant contribution to our high quality products and our very high customer satisfaction that we enjoy and that's so important to us. So moving on, we have Pascalis here as well. Morning, Pascalis. Pascalis has written, morning. Pascalis has written a lot of the software that we're going to be looking at this morning. So he knows the product very in depth, and I'm sure we'll be using him on some of the questions and answers as well. And we have you, we have the participants. We're really pleased to say that we had 60 people register for this by close of play yesterday. So we're blown away by that, and we appreciate how engaged our customers are. So that's great. How do you engage this morning with us? I'm sure you've been looking at some of the buttons available to you on Zoom if you haven't used it before. Could I point you all to Q&A, please, as the means to send us anything. Don't use chat, and don't use, there's a hand as well that you can put up, but just use Q&A, even if it's not a question. It'll allow us to monitor the communication channel a little bit easier and make sure we don't miss anything from you. And can we encourage you to use Q&A? We obviously can't see you. It's not like you're in the room with us. So do tell us what you think. Do tell us if you like something, if you don't like something, if you understand or don't understand anything. And of course, if you do have questions, then send them. And absolutely, if you think of anything in the product that we could do differently that might benefit you, or that we could do additionally that might benefit you, then do send us that over as well in a Q&A. It doesn't have to be perfectly formed. It just has to be the start of something, and we can take it from there. Just to mention, if you do send us any questions, that we are recording this. We hope to make it available to you afterwards and for general download. So your questions will have your name and your institution against them, so they may be in the recording. So if you do send us any questions, we will take that as your acceptance that we can publish the recording. So that's the introductions and the housekeeping over with. So it's so moving on, it's time to look at the first product, which is Juno Analytics, the strapline for which Data Insight tells us that it's Juno data, and it's the looking at that data in a better way. What we're hoping to do this morning is give you a little bit of background about what the product is. And then for the main part, we're going to try and create a report in the time that we have. And if successful, we're going to create a graph as well. And then we're going to return here for questions and answers. So what is Juno Analytics? It's a data analysis utility. Obviously, for looking at your Juno data, we record comprehensive data in Juno. Every single transaction through a turnstile is recorded. So it's an opportunity to analyze that wealth of information. We use Seal Report Builder, which is an industry standard platform. There are others available that we can provide the solution in. We've had comments from people about Crystal, about Tableau, about Power BI, possibly others. So it would be possible for us to provide this in another platform. We just have to have a bit of dialogue with you and a somewhat longer lead time to implement each one initially. Juno Analytics is a web-based environment, so it's multi-user, obviously, and multi-platform. And it's suitable for all types of users. So that's an important point. It means that if you are an institution that struggles to get IT resource, possibly, or data analysis resource, and it falls to you to get data out of Juno, perhaps you're not a software or code writer yourself, then analytics is absolutely right for you. It can be very beneficial. But if you are that IT resource, if you are that data analysis resource, then it's useful to you too, because analytics works on multiple levels. So an IT specialist will be able to get more out of it and more extensive and more complex solutions out of it as well. So it probably works for all types. For the purpose of this morning's practical, we are sort of doing the former. We're going to work on a non-scripting basis to try and create our report. So what does it do? It analyzes historical information that's all recorded, as I've mentioned, and real-time data such as current occupancy you can extract as well. Those reports can be shared to other users, and they can be extended to dashboards as well, which we'll see when we look at the product. It's fully user configurable, and there's no real limit to how many reports you can actually have. And you could also incorporate third-party data, so it doesn't have to be restricted to Juno data. We can put in data from the LMS or any other system to build up a bigger picture of student engagement. So I'm just going to drop out of the presentation at this point and take you to the product. Right, you should have seen my screen change. You should now be looking at a login page. Can someone nod their head? Barney, nod your head. Are you looking at my login page? Brilliant. So obviously being web-based, there is a authentication to go through. So we just link this into your existing, your existing authentication process through LDAP, for example. And then it takes you into a home page. So we have landed on the report page. There is a top bar here with a few options on it. The first option on the left-hand side toggles us from this report view into a dashboard view. And we'll come back to the dashboard view a little bit later on, but we'll switch back just for the moment. You have other options here. You can manage the folders. So you might have noticed I have a personal folder. So I can create reports that are just for me. And we have shared folders. So I can create a report that then everybody else can use. And that's all completely manageable. We have a profile option, which allows me to choose my language of choice. And it allows me to choose what my landing page is when I log in, which is why I'm currently set. I currently land on the reports page, but I can change that if I want to. So this list here, you might recognize some of these names. What we've done with Juno Analytics is we have ported across all the reports that exist in the Juno client. So you don't necessarily have to use the Juno client at all anymore. So some of these names you'll recognize. If we go down to usage, for example, we can run that. I'm just going to move the video screen. You may recognize the usage report. I know it's popular with a lot of you. I'm just going to change the date to the 30th of March and give that a run. I don't have any transactions in April, so I'll need to fiddle with the date a little bit this morning. So you may well recognize this report as the standard usage report, let's say, that already exists. So that's all in there. There is a useful information bar across the top here. We're in report mode. Information messages I haven't found a great use for, but results is useful. We can export our report. We can print it if we want. We can certainly create a CV for it. Again, videos are in the way. So we can export our data. We can then analyze that in some third-party product or open it in Excel, whatever it is that we want to do. When you run a report, it opens in a new tab. That'll always allows you to drop back to the home screen. I can close that one, can't I think? Drop back to the home screen and run another report. It always allows you to go back to one of the reports that you've already run and just check it again. So back on the home screen, I'm now going to minimize these videos because they are still in the way. We have things like usage statistics, so we can actually provide chart information rather than just a table of numbers. So again, if I choose, if I choose 30th of March, run that, we can get a graphical report out quite easily rather than just a table of data. With any graphical presentation, when you hover on the element, it actually gives you information. Now on this particular pie chart, we've got the information printed as anyway, but the point is that you get that information when you hover on the element regardless. So that could be very, very useful. So what we're going to do now is create a report of our own. So normally what we do is click on new and go from there. I have actually made a start. So we have one called Web1 Graph here. When I run it, I get a result set like this at the moment. So how have I done that? So all I've done to start off with is drag a few fields across. So this is our report builder pane. On the left-hand side, we can see all the Juno tables. You do need to know a little bit about table construction within Juno to be able to use this, obviously. That's something we can cover a little bit in training, of course. But the expectation is that you'll know your way around a little bit. You'll know, for example, what the transactions table is. So all I've done to start off with is drag 4 likely fields across into this first pane. And because there are a lot of transactions, I've stuck in a timestamp that makes sure that I only get most recent transactions. With regard to these dates, that was just a question of setting up a couple of parameters here in the options. So when you run that, as we saw, we get this result here. What we can do with this result is we can do a few things. It's currently sorted by member number. We can sort it by any of these headings, such as timestamp would obviously be a good choice. We have got 2,000 results, so they're paged, of course, for us if you want to page through, but we could also choose to view a greater number of rows. And we also have a filter, so if we want to look at something particular, let's take 219, then we can filter down. It's a very responsive filter that we've got there as well. So we're looking at raw data there. We're looking at each row was a single transaction. So the thing we might want to do is actually start compiling something. So we're going to need to count something up. We're going to need to change a few things here. We're going to get rid of member number because that's reasonably unique. We're going to get rid of timestamp because that's obviously to the second. So we need to get rid of that. But the good news is there is a timestamp day field in the transactions report, so we can put that in. And our graph will then hopefully give us an x-axis, which is the date. I'm going to remove direction as well. We're going to therefore count ins and outs in our report, but it will just give us a little bit more information, so that's fine. And I am going to extend the date because I've only got 2 days at the moment. I need to extend that. So I'm going to move the start date back up to about a month ago. And let's give that a run. And let's sort it by timestamp. And this is beginning to look better. This is beginning to look like the start of our graph. We only have 6 records now for the 1st of March, and each one is a different category 1 value. So the only thing we're really missing here is actually the count for each row. So let's just drop that in. This is the 3rd pane over here. This is a pane we haven't used yet. So if I just take a suitable field and make sure we're doing the right thing. We don't want to sum them, we just want to count them. And let's run that. And we now have a count. So 161 is the number of BRB09 categories that came in through returns or out on the 1st of March. So this is now just about ready to convert to a graph. We have the makings of a graph here, really. So how do we do that? So we drop back to our report builder again. Again, this is the pane that does all the clever stuff. So we need to change how this is presenting. So we have some chart options down here. I'm just going to go straight to NVD3 and change that to a line graph. We're also going to choose our timestamp day as our axis, of course, because we want our report to, the x-axis to be the date, of course. And if we just do that, then our graph will actually just show us a single line and it will show a full occupancy for each day. But we actually want to split it down by category 1. So what we do is we set the chart axis on category 1, we set that to to splitter as well. Let me just check that I've done everything here on my list. We're going to remove data tables. It just deletes the data from the end result as well, because we don't want a whole list of data alongside the graph. And we could put in a title here as well. Oop. Try running that. So here's our graph. Here's our day of the month from the 1st of March onwards. Here's our key. So these are our courses that we're running. We're quite a small university. We only run 6 courses. And these are the transactions that apply on each day. And it's the usual hover over any single point and you get a full list of data. Those numbers down there, the 178s and so forth, they're the numbers you would have found, of course, in the table that we had just a moment ago. So that's looking great. I'm going to save that and close this report builder now. And we now have a report that we can run anytime. I can click on it. There it is. And we also have a report that we can drop into our dashboards. So let's drop back to dashboards. We looked at them very early on, haven't looked since. So there's a bit of room here for another widget. These are called widgets. So let's see if we can't add the graph that we've just created. There it is, webinar 1 graph. So let's add that. It's likely to not quite get them in the sequence that we want them, which is fine because you just drag them. I'm going to go to full screen. You'll also need to just adjust the size here a little bit as well. So let's put in 600, let's put in 440, just reshape it a little bit. So here now is our dashboard. Here is the graph we've just created in our dashboard, which we can publish and release. So that's all there is to it, basically. So let's just wrap up, back to the presentation. So in summary, we have LDAP authentication to log in. We host, obviously, the Juno reports that already exist, that you already have in Juno, and we have some additional reports, additional reports that you can add. You can access those reports on demand by going into the product and running them. But it's also a scheduler, which we haven't really had time for, but we can export on queue to a file or indeed to an email as well. So that is Juno Analytics, everybody. And we're through to questions.
Thanks. Sorry, it's Alan talking now. Thanks. Got quite a few questions, probably too many to deal with just now. So I'll just pick some out and we'll look to reply to the rest of the questions and supply the reply to everybody, really. But just to pick some out, one question, you mentioned that the connections to the LMS are supported, and the question was which LMSs, Kevin?
Well, it would be a data connection. Pascalis, you need to unmute yourself, please, if you wouldn't mind. But it would be a... Hi.
I already tried to answer. It's going to be LMSs that are based on, they have an underlying database system, like SQL or MySQL or Oracle. All of these LMSs that have those systems. I'm afraid you won't, you won't be able to pull data from Alma like an API. All those web-based APIs that won't allow us to connect to whole data sets. So it's not possible to connect with Alma for now. But you can also connect with static files like CSV or Excel files or any other database system that supports basic ODBC. So basically any SQL-based or static file system.
So any system that doesn't allow data access, so long as you could extract some data into some other form, then we'd be able to connect to it, and you could take advantage of Juno Analytics.
Okay, another question. Can reports be scheduled and sent by email?
Yes, absolutely. We didn't quite get time for that. But just back in that report builder, there was a third tab called schedule, and you would just select that. And exactly that, you can schedule it to create a file and drop it into a particular folder, or you can schedule it to be emailed at a particular time, and the time and day.
Okay, there's a question about where we're up to really with the development, and asking whether we're at beta test stage at the moment. I think I can probably answer that in actual fact. All of these products, and indeed the webinar 2, we have orders from people for all of them, and they're all at sort of various stages, I think, at the moment. Analytics, I think it is probably fair to say we have a beta tester or a beta test site, and that is the stage that we're up to. Yeah. Another technical question, so I think this is one for you, Pascalis. Sorry, Kevin, didn't mean anything by that.
That's okay.
Looks like Bootstrap. If so, just wondering the version and if it will be updated in line with the official Bootstrap releases.
Yes, it does work with HTML5 and Bootstrap. Don't have the actual version in hand, but we are using the Seal report system, which is an open source underlying system, and we're just going to be following the updates of that system and updating analytics.
Okay, I think last question, Kevin. Somebody has asked about the process for installing analytics and what Telepen will need to do and what will be required of the institution.
Pascalis, can you start that, and I'll chip in at the end.
Well, technically, the installation entails a web server, so you're going to need to have a web server running on your premises or anywhere else you like, on a cloud, virtual machine, whatever, depending on your installation. And that web server will have the analytics application, needs to have access to the actual database, the Juno database, to connect to it and report from it. So it's basically a web server and like IIS, meaning web server, an IIS installation on one of your servers.
Okay, shall I just squeeze one more question in, and then we'll perhaps move on. One question: will this run reports in relation to room booking function within Juno?
Yeah, absolutely. All the room booking data is actually in the same database. There's a single database, so it will, and you could incorporate access control and room booking into one report if you want to as well. Yeah, very straightforward.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Right, thank you. So that ends Juno Analytics. I am going to hand over to Barney. Going to release my screen. Hand over to Barney. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, and yeah, thanks Kevin. I'll take over. So I'll start sharing my screen so we can start taking a look at Juno Buddy. So Juno Buddy is our latest smartphone application development, and it essentially is looking to enable access to your library and just make access easier for everyone and all your students to get access to your library. So it enables access through your access control barriers using the student's smartphone. So it's a smartphone application that's available on both Android and iOS. Students download it through their the normal methods of downloading an app, so via the iStore or via the Play Store, and then they log in and authenticate themselves using usually LDAP or the two-stage authentication, whichever your institution chooses to use. And then there are a way to use the app. And your library can adopt the application in a couple of different ways. So you could use it in a similar way to our temporary card kiosk. So students would only use the app if they've forgotten their card. And you can set restrictions within the app on how long the app is valid for them to use for say that day or for however long you want. And then the other option is that you can allow the app to be used as a full-time option to their student ID card. So they can essentially use it alongside their ID card, so they can pick and choose whether they've got their ID card or whether they've got use Juno Buddy to access the library. And really the point of this is really to improve the student experience and their satisfaction with gaining entry to the library and making use of the library, and really to make accessing the library as easy as possible while still maintaining the access control management that is clearly important to the library. And this also then reduces the need for staff intervention and a potential point of conflict. So where students have either forgotten their card or are having trouble accessing the library for whatever reason, they'll be able to just go straight to their smartphone rather than needing to go and speak to a member of staff or take up their time for this. They can just use their smartphone and get straight in. And that obviously just removes any need or any potential point of conflict where a student's unhappy about not being allowed entry because they've forgotten their card, that sort of thing. The library can also use the Juno Buddy application to send messages and reminders to the student. So, for instance, you might wish to remind a student that they've got a room booking for that day, so you can remind them of the time and the PIN number to access the room, or that they've got, say, an item, a reserved item is ready for collection. You can send a reminder for that. And you're also able to link to external resources from within the application. So your library can pick and choose what those resources are. It may simply be that you just want to link out to the library homepage or the opening hours, or you could also link out to potentially your collections system, so students can access the collections via the application and search through from in there. So as I say, it's all entirely up to your library what options you want to link out to. Another benefit as well is that students can access their own library usage statistics from within the application, so they can view things like the expiry date of the card and how often they visited, that sort of thing. Another option as well, potentially, depending on if supported by your other vendors, is that it enables the use of Juno Buddy to access other library services. So we can already use it to enter the library through the turnstiles. Potentially you could use it to use the self-loan stations or your laptop loans. So we can certainly do this with our self-loan. So as I say, it just depends a little bit on whether it's supported by other vendors. As I say, the application is downloaded via the normal App Store or Play Store method. And then once the students logged in and authenticated themselves, the application can then be branded and customized by your university and your library to really make it feel like an individual university application. So you can branding your logo and customize the color scheme to really suit whatever it is or however it is you want the look and feel to be. So the way the phone application is used, and we'll show you in a live demonstration in a sec or a live walkthrough of the app. But the student will load up the app, and then an electronic barcode is displayed on the screen, and they then use their smartphone to display it to the access control barrier scanners. What we need to do, there is a change that we need to make at the turnstile or the barrier, and we need to replace the laser scanner that is generally installed or we've historically installed. We need to replace that with a 2D image scanner. And this just means that then the scanner can be clearly and instantly from mobile phone screens. So we don't need for users or students to mess around with brightness settings on the screens and all that sort of thing. It will just read clearly and consistently. It will still continue to read normal ID cards and normal barcode tickets, so there's no loss of functionality there. It just really means that the smartphone can be used really easily, and it gives a really good result as well. So you potentially reading up to about a foot above the turnstile, so it works really well. So let's take a look at the actual smartphone application. So I'm just going to bring across my smartphone screen here. This is actually my screen on that you can see, so it's just mirroring what I'm doing on the phone. So as you can see, hopefully on the desktop of my phone there is I've got a couple of app options, but we're going to take a look at Juno Buddy. And straight in. So it's all customizable. So the screen you may momentarily have seen there with the Juno Buddy emblem and the loading on the screen, that could be customized. So that could show your university logo or your library name as it's loading. And then we're straight in here, and you can see a welcome message for me. So this is fully available by your library. So it could be just free text, you just type in here welcome or whatever you want, or it can also be brought across as the fields that you import in Juno in your LMS load or your data load. And this message here is built to that particular student, and so then just click to okay, and we're straight to the home there. And here's the electronic barcode there that you can see. So this is a unique barcode, unique to that individual and unique to the application. What that then enables us to do is it enables us to differentiate the method of entry that's been used by students. So you can run a report by Juno or via analytics, as Kevin's just taken through, and you can see the method of entry that's been used by the student to enter the library. So whether that's their ID card, whether that's the ticket kiosk, for instance, or as we're talking about here, the Juno Buddy application. So barcode is unique, but it's still linked to that student's account. So you know exactly the usage data for that student and all that sort of thing as you need to know. At the bottom of the screen, you can see hopefully a scrolling message. Again, this is customizable by the library. This is a general message, so it's just sent out to everybody. So it could be useful for advertising opening times, or potentially pushing a particular exhibition or collection that you may like to highlight. So as I say, it's completely customizable, and it's just a general message that then scrolls out to everybody, and you can change that as and when you feel. At the top of the screen, you can see our University of Anytown Library name and the logo. This is also where you can customize. You can change that and obviously input your own university name and library name and have your own logos. So we'll then take a look at the other benefits and the other options that we talked about previously. So in the top right, you can see there's a menu option there. So the first option, and you can see, is statistics. So we'll go in there, and this is where the student can view their own individual statistics. So you can see there's a few for them to view. The expiry date there at the top. So as I mentioned, the application can be adopted in a couple of different ways. So if this is being used alongside as a full-time sort of work along with student ID card, then the expiry date there will match their student ID card expiry date. If it's being used in a similar way to the day ticket kiosk, the expiry date would then show whatever expiry date and time you've set the limit for day tickets. Okay, and that returns us to the main screen. The next couple of options there are our links out. So this is where you can choose to link out to an external resource potentially. So all that happens is we'll click here. So this particular link takes us to our favorite website on the whole of the internet, as you can see, the Telepen website. And you can see that then we can scroll through and interact with the website as we would normally. So this could be where, as I say, you link out to your own university website or your library homepage, or anywhere else. And then our next one down, I've simply linked out to Google here, but as I say, this could be to a collections management. But here we can see that if we need to input text, then the keyboard pops up, and we can simply type in here what we want to search for. And obviously, we're keen on looking at a Telepen barcode. But you can see that if you need to interact with the application anyway, that the keyboard there is there for you to do that. And then we can just return out. Our next menu item is for the messages. So the welcome message that was shown as we entered the app, all of these are then stored in the messages section. So if they've closed the message down and then realised that they can't quite remember what the reminder was, whether it was for a room booking or an item, or maybe simply that they need to go and see customer services for some reason, they can go back into the messages here, and we can have a look at what that said there, and then they can just dismiss that again and return back to the main screen. The next option is a disclaimer, and again, this is customizable by your library, so you can pick and choose the terms and conditions that you put in here, or the terms of use, whatever you want to put in there. And it's scrollable, and you can put as much or as little information in there as you choose. And then we've just got an about screen, so this just tells us the version of Juno Buddy and all that sort of thing. And then the last screen here is the help screen. So this, again, is customizable. You can put in whatever information on here for your students to help them use the application. So it may simply be, as our demonstration, that you have an email address or a number that people can call if they're struggling to use it, or it may be a bit of a step-by-step type guide to help students use the application. And that's the features of the app. So the only other thing really to mention is that our future developments or on the roadmap for this year is to include the NFC capability for mobile phones. So they'll be able to use their phone, and for those of you who have MyFair or DesFire readers fitted to your barriers already, will be able to use the phones to tap and go and enter into the library in that way. So there we go. So are there any questions on the Juno Buddy application?
Yes, we've got a few questions, Barney. A couple on security. I'll reword a couple of the questions that people use Q&A for, partly because more than one person has asked the same question. So first question, what security process will be in place to prevent students who are tracked from accessing their account using a friend's details on their phone?
So, sorry, could you repeat the question, Alan? You went a little bit.
Well, I think the concern is that somebody who's trapped or stopped from accessing their own account would perhaps use their friend's account on their phone, on their own phone.
Okay, so yeah, sorry, you were corrected the first time. So yeah, thanks for repeating. So really, the student has to use their own authentication email and password to log into the app and use the app, and it's down to the student not to share their credentials in the same ways you'd expect for them not to share their bank card details and that sort of thing. Much in the same way as it's against the rules for them to use somebody else's ID card to gain entry. The normal restrictions that Juno has so once somebody's into the library, it knows they're in the library, you won't be able to pass back, or that they're already in. They all remain in place for Juno Buddy. And likewise, if they've used their ID card to gain entry, they can't then pass their phone to somebody else to use to gain entry to the library. So it does limit them in that way.
Okay, next question is the barcode unique each time to prevent students using screenshots? There's quite a few people have asked this question.
So the barcode is unique in the sense that it's unique to that student, and it's always relates to the latest ID card number on their account. So if they've had a new account number, then it will relate to that. It doesn't restrict them potentially screen grabbing to use separately, but it's as secure as, for instance, being able to photocopy your normal ID card in that way. We are currently unable to restrict the screen grab capability of the phone.
Okay, another question. Can the library set a limit to the amount of times that the student can use their phone to gain entry? I think the concern here is that the library wants students to bring their card in to use other devices, self-service or print copy, I guess, that type of thing.
Yeah, so at the moment, I don't think we've added that functionality to set a particular limit for using the phone, but it is something that I'm sure we could incorporate if that was needed.
Be interesting if any other customers that have got thoughts on that point could actually just send us some comments through Q&A on that, just to see if that's a common thing, and then obviously we can incorporate it.
There's quite a lot of people have raised that as a point. Quite a few people,
right,
particularly talking about screen grab.
Oh, that was the question before.
Yes.
So the question.
Oh, sorry, you're talking about the limiting. Sorry, yes.
Yes. So if that's a common thing, then that would definitely be on the development plan. Could be done quite quickly, I would have thought.
Yeah, I would have thought so as well. Okay, I think probably Barney, move on to the final subject.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So yeah, moving on to Juno Infinity, or as you can see, Juno Everywhere, and this really is our development that enables you to access your Juno and Juno room booking client applications from essentially or pretty much anywhere and everywhere. So this is a web-based adaptation of the Juno and room booking client applications, which means that rather than having your locally installed client applications for Juno and room booking on your individual staff workstations, you'll now be able to access the applications by your web browser. So you can go to your Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, whichever browser it is that you use, and you simply navigate to the URL and log in, and then you will be there looking at your client application for either Juno or room booking and able to access it from anywhere. So you're no longer tied to your desk or needing to use your particular workstation to do that. So it'll work, on your laptop or on your Surface tablet or any other tablet. Worth mentioning though, as the screen gets smaller, obviously the functionality or the optimization may be a little bit tricky, but certainly for laptops and large tablets, it'll look fantastic and really free you up for where you can access these applications from. And this also then removes the need to install and maintain applications on your staff workstations, and that removes the need as is a common problem or common factor for needing to speak to your IT colleagues and get their IT support to install them. So normally, when you want to install the application or there's an update, or for instance, you may have had a new workstation, you need to get in touch with your IT support and they need to have the administrator privileges. And then you also need to come to us for a license code to install it. Juno Infinity does away with all of that. It's just simply accessed via your web browser, and you log in using your normal credentials, so LDAP authentication, and you log in with your username and password. It's available to be hosted on premise or as a full cloud hosted solution. So if your current instance of Juno is locally hosted, so you have a server or a virtual machine locally hosted, then Juno Infinity, the module is simply installed alongside that. And likewise, if you have a cloud hosted solution, Juno Infinity is installed to your cloud storage location. And then what this means is that the whole Juno client application is a full cloud solution. So you no longer have any locally installed clients or locally installed client applications. So let's take a look at the application. So as you can see here, I'm just in Internet Explorer, and the difference, as you can see, between just loading your normal locally installed client application and using Juno Infinity is here we need to log in. As I say, this is just your usual credentials. So we can log in here. And it's worth saying at this point actually as well that what you can see at the top of the screen here where it says Juno Infinity, you can customize that if you so wish. So it can show your own university details and your own library details. So here we go, and we'll just log in. And straight away, we're onto the landing page of Juno. And so this, for those of you who are already Juno users, I think the vast majority are, but for those of you who are, then this will be very familiar to you. So you can see on the left-hand side, we've got the familiar tiles. And then over onto the right-hand side, we've got the area for where you can choose which window tiles you want to display. And in the same way as the client, the standalone client application, the windows are remembered. So if there's a particular view that you'd like to have, you can drop them into place, and then when you come away from the application and log back in, that will be remembered. So it'll have that same familiar look and feel as you're used to. The key difference that you may well have spotted is obviously we've got a log out button there, log out option. So obviously we have to log in, so there's also the log out option. And it will also automatically log itself out after a period of inactivity. As I mentioned, to log in, it uses your usual credentials, and then the library can manage from within that, from an extension to those credentials, who actually has access to Juno, and they just do that within the setup users. So here, the library administrator or whoever's administrating Juno simply adds the username in there and chooses what user level of access the individual is granted. So just the username, no need to enter passwords in here, it's just the username, and that's how it's decided. So the standard license for Juno Infinity is for 10 users, which generally seems to be about the right amount for the majority of you to use. But there are options to extend that if you needed 15, 20, 50, 200 licenses, then we can have that conversation or extensions to that. So I'll come away back to here and then return to the screen. And as I say, whenever you're finished with your time in Juno, we can just simply log out and the application's closed. And we can then go wherever else we tend to browse on the internet. And then obviously we can just then go back in and log back in as we need to. And then here we are, straight back into Central Juno. As I say, it is also available for Juno room booking, and works in exactly the same way. So you log in, and your Juno room booking application will be as familiar to you as your local application has been. So this, back to the presentation, this screen just shows you essentially a snapshot of the architecture. So you can see that whether it's a single VM or it's the cloud hosting, so the applications there are all hosted on the cloud in the VM, and then everything else just accesses it over the network. So Juno Infinity, any questions on this last product that we're talking about today?
Yes, we've got one or two questions. First one is about authentication. Are there any other options to LDAP?
Yeah, Pascalis, do you want to?
There are other options for authentication apart from the Windows authentication. Suppose single sign-on, suppose OAuth 2, Radius, and Duo, I think. And there's an option to incorporate other DLL methods, but I think it covers the basic authentication methods.
Okay, and just while we're talking about LDAP, one question here. Does the user management on Juno Infinity allow use of LDAP groups to manage access?
There is a functionality to map specific groups, but since once you authenticate it, doesn't mean that you can access Juno, because as Barney showed us, you need to specifically declare which have access.
Another question, interest. Can the analytics reports be incorporated into Infinity?
I'll take this one again. It can, but we don't see the point, because since you're going to have analytics, it's going to be a web-based environment, same as Infinity. It's going to be on the cloud, so it would be basically just to click on the link and open analytics, not include the actual pages within the Juno client.
Okay. Another question about licenses. Barney, could you just talk about how the license in the 10 user license, or whichever one it is people might have, can you just cover that again as a question about, is there a license per user?
So it's not necessarily a license per user. It's more of a group license. So we'd have a bank of users. So 10 users is the standard license, and then we could extend that for additional users.
Okay, I think I mean there's quite a number of questions that throughout this session that that we haven't looked at. Some of them where I think we need to probably do a little bit of research as well. But we'll list all of the questions we've received and provide an answer and provide that information to everybody. Barn, if you want to close.
Okay, yeah, so thank you very much for your participation in this webinar, our Central User Group 2020, the first of our webinars. The interest and the level of interest has been fantastic. As Alan said, the questions that we haven't been able to get to answer today, we will follow up with answers, and we'll distribute to everyone. And also the webinar has been recorded, so the link to that will be made available. As Kevin's said, we are looking to run a second webinar in a few weeks' time, where we'll cover our space management and space utilization products, and invitations and more information about that will be forthcoming. It would be great to see you there for that as well. Otherwise, as I say, thank you very much for your participation here, and we hope to see you very soon. Everybody stay safe, keep well, and we will see you soon. Thank you.